Good morning, students. My name is Sadhna Singh, and here I am to teach you about the teach you bio for Neet. So I am presenting you with my notes. My notes have been extracted from NCRT, as we all know that every year all the bio questions for Neet completely comes from NCRT. So my notes are completely based on NCRT. If you read my notes, then you don't have to read extra things and to score a good marks in bio in case of Neet, we need to focus only on NCRT, whatever information has been provided to us in NCRT. And my notes are purely based on the lines and all the information that has been provided to you through NCRT. So I'm going to start my first chapter, that is breathing and exchange of gases. So everything that has been provided in these notes, I'll tell you about the diagrams which are not a part of NCRT, which I have added in order to make you understand. But all the text that you will see in the slides, all the lines, everything has been extracted from NCRT. So you have to just go through this lines or this notes in order to secure a good marks. So we're going to start with breathing and exchange of gases. So here, mechanism of breathing vary among different groups of animals depending upon their habitats and level of organization. As we know that there are vertebrates, invertebrates in this ecosystem. Now the breathing, the mechanism by which they exchange gases for respiration differs in different kind of organism, and it mainly depends upon habitat and level of organization. See, there are a lot of other factors which are involved, but we are only focusing on the facts which are provided in NCRT. So given in question that mechanism of breathing, on what factors do this depend, we will say two factors. First is habitat, and the next one is level of organization, that is in what environment the organism is surviving. And what is the level of organization, that is whether it's cellular or it's tissue or organ, because depending on that they will use, like if an organism has cellular level of organization, obviously they will not have organs like lungs or gills to exchange gases, therefore they do it by another mechanism. But when we consider organisms like us or reptiles, amphibians, etc., which have this organ system level of organization, they will use organs like lungs, gills, etc., to for exchange of gases. Now here, certain examples have also been provided in NCRT, which you need to remember. So first we have is the lower invertebrates. Lower invertebrates means the one which have this cellular level of organization, or we can say tissue level of organization or organ level of organization, like sponges, coelotrates, flatworms, etc. That means what we are having: porifera, coelenterata, and platyhelminthes. What do? They exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide by help of simple diffusion over their entire body surface. Since we know that they do not have any specialized organs for this gaseous exchange, they do this by simple diffusion, that is through their surface. Oxygen is taken in and carbon dioxide is respired out. Okay, so next we have earthworms. Earthworms belongs to annelida. So we are going on increasing the level of organization in organism, and we are seeing through the examples that are provided in NCRT as to how this organisms respire. Okay, the next example which has been provided is earthworms uses their moist cuticle. Now, what is okay? So you can ask what is cuticle. So cuticle is a thin. It is a thin, tough, non-cellular outer layer that is secreted by the underlying epidermis in case of earthworms. So it's thin. So since earthworms, we know they do not have any specific organ for respiration, so they use this cuticle which remains in a moist condition in order to exchange gases. That means they take oxygen and they give out carbon dioxide. A diagram has also been provided in order to make you understand respiration earthworm. The cuticle has been shown and how like the gaseous exchange occurs on the upper surface. But this diagram is not a part of NCRT. Next, we are having insects. So we are moving to another level, higher level of organization, that is arthropoda. In insects, what we see, there is a network of tube, that is tracheal tubes. We also have this tubes. We know we have this lungs, then trachea. These are all tubes which helps us in respiration. Similar kind of pattern is seen in insects, but since we are more advanced, the respiratory system mechanism in our case is more advanced when we compare it to insects. So in insects, we can see there is a network of tube, which is referred to as tracheal tubes, with the help of which they perform respiration. So I'm going to the next slide. Okay, so here a diagram has been provided to make you understand about the tracheal tube respiration in case of insects. As you can see, the smaller circular part which is seen at the starting end, that is the spiracle, that is through which the gaseous exchange takes place. Again, this diagram is not a part of NCRT, so you don't have to remember it. It's just for your understanding. Then we have this trachea, which is divided into tracheoles, and then at tracheoles the gaseous exchange occurs. So this is very simple, similar to human beings, but in case of human beings, since we are more advanced, so we have more advanced system for respiration when we compare it to insects. Another example which has been provided is aquatic arthropods, that is arthropods. See, arthropods, we know that they are like the most diverse organisms. They are the most populated organism which is present on earth. So you're going to find arthropods everywhere, on land, in water. So the mechanism by which arthropods respire depends, as we saw in the starting of the slide, that the mechanism of respiration depends on both habitat as well as level of organization. So since arthropods have different habitats, some survive on land, some are present in water, some you see they fly, like they are present in air also. Depending on that, they will also have different types of respiration. We saw insects have this tracheal tubes. Now aquatic arthropods, that is the arthropods which are present in water, and mollusca, we know after arthropoda, then we have this mollusca, the next level of organization. They use special vascularized structure. What is vascularized? Vascularized is okay. So vascularized is the structure which is provided with a lot of blood vessels. That means a lot of blood is coming in and going out. So that a vascularized structure, which is referred to as gills. We are all aware of gills, the organ through which fishes respire. So the same gills is used by aquatic arthropods and mollusks for their respiration. One more information that has been provided in NCRT is that they can ask you in question is what the respiration by gills, what is it called? This is referred to as branchial respiration. Different names are given to the type of respiration associated with the different types of organs. So we need to remember that the respiration which occurs through gills, it is always brachial respiration. Next, we are having terrestrial forms. What about the terrestrial forms? So we had come to mollusca, the level of organization. After that, most of the organism we know they thrive on land. So what about the terrestrial forms? Okay, so what about the terrestrial forms? Terrestrial forms also uses vascularized packs. We know that the aquatic arthropods, mollusks, they were also using a vascularized pack that was referred to as gills. But of course, the same structure will not be utilized on terrestrial form. So in terrestrial form, they also use a vascularized bag, which is referred to as lungs. Okay, why are we saying this vascularized structure? Like, why is this vascularized term coming? Why do we have this, that the bag or whatever structure we are using for respiration, it has to be provided with blood vessels or blood? Because we all know that blood is the medium through which gases they travel, or they are being transported from the alveoli to the different organs. So it is very important to have a structure which is well vascularized, because if we don't have blood, if we don't have the medium, how will the gases transport from one place to another? Okay, so in terrestrial forms, what we can see is another vascularized bag is used, but here we don't use gills, here we use lungs. Now what is the type of respiration called which is done with lungs? It's pulmonary respiration. So you need to differentiate it. The respiration which occurs by gills is called brachial respiration. Respiration which occurs by lungs is pulmonary respiration. It comes in MCQs. Okay. Next, we have vertebrates. We are done with invertebrates. Next, we are having, what about vertebrates? We know invertebrates like birds, mammals, amphibians, reptiles, they all respire through lungs. Fishes. We know invertebrates, we have 5 classes. that is fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. So fishes, they live in water, so they respire through gills, and the others, they thrive on land, so they will respire through lungs. But one more special case which we see in vertebrates is amphibians. We know amphibians live on both land as well as in water. So what happens, like obviously in water and on land, they are going to have different kinds of process of respiration. So we know when they are on land, they are respiring through lungs. Again, I'm focusing on this fact that respiration by lungs is pulmonary respiration, respiration by gills is brachial respiration. It is a very important information. It comes in as MCQ in Neet, or it has come in previous years also. So amphibians, we are speaking about amphibians. For example, here it has been given like frogs, they respire through lungs on land. Now what about in water? Like in water, they will respire through moist skin, and this respiration is called cutaneous respiration. So in total, we are having three types of respiration. The first one is through gills, that is referred to as the brachial respiration. Second one is through lungs, that is referred to as pulmonary respiration. Third is by moist skin, which is referred to as cutaneous respiration. This is seen in vertebrates. So we are done with this respiration thing. Okay, so I'm moving to the next part, the next slide. So next we are going to start the human respiratory system. Okay, so here a diagram has been provided to you. I'll tell you about the course, like from where this respiratory system starts. And this diagram is not a part of, the left one is not a part of NCRT, but the right one is a part of NCRT. So you need to do the right diagram. That is the one where epiglottis, trachea, and every information is provided to you. The first one is just provided to you for your understanding, so that when I say you the roots of respiratory system, you can have a better understanding, or you can like relate to it. Okay, so I'm going to start with human respiratory system. Okay, so first we have is a pair of external nostrils, we know. Now from there, through which the air enters our body or leaves our body. From there, we'll have a nasal passage. Obviously, we need a passage through which the air will move inside the body. So from the external nostrils, next we have nasal passage. The air travels through nasal passage and it goes to the nasal chamber. That is from where it will move further. Then we have pharynx. What is pharynx? So pharynx is a common passage for both food and air. That is, we know that from when the air is entering our body through the nose, and when we eat food, it's actually going down, right? So there is this structure, pharynx, which is a common passage for both food and air. Okay, and it goes through larynx. So pharynx, see, you need to remember this course, because many a times we have seen that in Neet, they give this course as a question, as in what is the course of air which goes through, and whatever information has been provided in NCRT, you have to remember it in the same sequence, and I have provided you with the same sequence so that you will not have any issues, or you don't have to extract it otherwise. So first we had the pair of nostrils, then we had the nasal passage, we had the nasal chamber, then the air will move through pharynx, which is a common passage for food and air. This question comes, common passage for food and air, pharynx. How it goes? It goes through larynx. Okay. Now what is larynx? You need to know there's a note which is being provided in NCRT from where questions come. What is this larynx? Larynx is a cartilaginous box. Why do we say cartilaginous box? Larynx is divided into a different, it is divided into different parts. There is a lot of information, and I know you can have many questions about like why is it called the cartilaginous box, or how is it associated with pharynx and everything. But right now, that should not be your concern, because right now you're studying for your selection in Neet, and you just need to focus on the facts which has been provided in NCRT. You need to remember it, because many a times they will twist the words, they will give some wrong word, they will use a sentence, everything is okay, but at the end they will just change a word, they'll change this statement, the meaning of the statement entirely. So all you need to do right now, you just need to know the facts which has been provided in NCRT, and you have to know like which word is present where, and how is the line constructed and all. So I'm just providing you with the minimal information you require to answer your questions for MCQs in Neet, right? Okay, so we were speaking about larynx. So larynx is a cartilaginous box. It is made of cartilage. There are different parts which you will learn after you get into MBBS, but for now you just have to know that larynx is a cartilaginous box. What it is called? It is called the sound box. Why? Because it helps in sound production. All this mechanism have been you'll read about it in anatomy when you go in MBBS, but right now you don't have to take concern about that. Right now you just need to know the facts. So I'm telling you the facts. Larynx is a cartilaginous box. It is referred to as sound box. Why? Because it helps in sound production. This is all you need to know. Okay. Now we know that, of course. So since the air, food, both is moving in the pharynx through larynx, so there has to be an opening of the larynx. The opening of the larynx is called glottis. There are two words you will not get confused with it. One is glottis and the other one is epiglottis. The opening of larynx is called glottis. Okay. Now this glottis, of course, we know that suppose we have a can, right? When you open a can, there's a lid, you open the lid and then you enter into that can or whatever. There's a covering also which is provided on the can of soft drinks as we have seen. So the covering which we see on the can, that is the glottis, right? It is protected, like it has been provided to protect the can. Okay, so we have this larynx, okay, which is the can. Now this can has this membrane which protects it, that is glottis, but you need the lid to open it, right? Glottis also has a similar kind of lid that is referred to as epiglottis. Now there are three things which are provided which you need to remember. What is it? Epiglottis is thin, first of all. It is elastic and it is cartilaginous flap. Okay. During swallowing, we come to know what we read before, that pharynx is a common passage for both food and air. Obviously, food and air will not move inside at the same time, right? So in order to avoid okay, so we were reading about epiglottis. So I have said you that three key words are provided. Okay, thin. You have to know that obviously it has to be thin, it has to be elastic and cartilaginous so that it will be easier for it to open. Okay, so what was I saying? That pharynx, which is the air is moving into pharynx through larynx. So pharynx is a common passage for both food and air. Obviously, the food and air will not move at the same time. As a result of which, during swallowing, it is provided here the information that during swallowing, what happens is it will be covered, right, with the flap which has been provided for. So what we come to know, the opening of larynx is referred to as glottis, and there is a flap which covers the glottis that is referred to as epiglottis. Now three keywords you need to remember about epiglottis. What is it? It is thin, it is cartilaginous, and it is elastic. Okay, if you can't remember, you have to just use your common sense. So first of all, it has to be thin, it has to be elastic. Like if it will not be elastic, it will be very difficult to open and close it, because everything that happens in our body, it happens in very less time, like very less time it requires. So obviously the mechanism has to be built in such a manner that it will be easier for the body to function. So it has to be thin, it has to be elastic, and it has to be cartilaginous. Cartilaginous, the keyword we came to know that larynx was also a cartilaginous box, so you can correlate it. You have to read it by correlating things, because you should have this photographic memory. Like when you're solving the questions, you will not get much time. The lesser time you take in biology, you will get more time for physics. So you need to have this photographic memory. It will not be like you're reading a question and you're thinking and then answering it. You're not going to get so much time in it. So in order to make your performance more efficient, you need to spend very less time for biology, and for that you have to remember every detail. You should have this photographic memory, that as in where you have read what, so that you read the question instantly you're going to answer the questions. Okay, so we had come to larynx. Okay, we were doing the course, pair of external nostrils, nasal passage, nasal chamber, pharynx through larynx. Now what comes next? We have trachea. Everyone is aware of trachea. What is trachea? Trachea is a straight tube. right, through which the air goes into the lungs. We all know that. So trachea, there's an information provided that it extends up to the mid-thoracic cavity. You need to, these are the keywords. I'm emphasizing you on the keywords because many a times they change these keywords, and they nowadays we know in Neet they are providing with this statement-based question. Most maximum questions like 70 to 80% of the question which comes in Neet, it comes from statement-based question, whether it be like assertion, reason, or correct, incorrect, or true, false, whatever it is. So you need to know the keywords in order to answer it. So what is it? What did I say you? Trachea is a straight tube. It extends till the mid-thoracic cavity. Now, we know we have a pair of lungs, that is two lungs are present. So, of course, if a tube is going straight, it has to divide so that it can go equally in both the lungs. Okay. So now the trachea has to divide. Where does it divide? That is a very important question. It divides at the level of fifth thoracic vertebra. We are all aware of vertebra, seventh cervical vertebra, which is present in the neck. After that, which is present in the neck. After that, we have 12 thoracic vertebra, right? At the fifth thoracic vertebra, the straight tube divides. Now it will divide into two parts. One is left bronchi and the other one is right bronchi. So two lungs we have, one is in the left part and the another one is the right part. So one will move to each lungs. Now trachea divides to form bronchi, right? One is left bronchi, the other one is right bronchi. Then again, this, like we have read in roots. In roots, we have read that there is a single root. It gets divided into several orders and then it will spread in the soil in order to absorb maximum amount of water. Here also, in order to enhance the surface area for respiration, for the exchange of gases, bronchi, the left and right bronchi, gets divided into a number of divisions. Okay, I'm moving to the next slide. Okay, it divides into a number of other bronchis. So how is it? Okay, just a second. Okay, I'm sorry. So what we come to know that the bronchi gets divided into several other orders like primary bronchi, that was the primary bronchi, secondary bronchi, tertiary bronchi, etc. So the divisions will go on until they form a structure which is referred to as bronchioles. How is the bronchioles is a question that can come to you. How is the bronchioles? The bronchioles are thin. They are irregular walled. Okay, so you have to know they are thin and they are irregular walled, the bronchioles. Okay, now these bronchioles, and they divided into bronchioles, and then they will form a structure which is referred to as alveoli. How is alveoli? Again, vascularized bag-like structure. Vascularized bag-like structure are keywords. We have seen it in gills, we have seen it in lungs also. In lungs, later we will see that alveoli is the major site for gaseous exchange. So we come to know trachea, it divides into left and right bronchi. The bronchi gets divided into various bronchioles. How is the bronchioles? They are very thin and irregular walled. These two are the key words. They are very thin and irregular walled. Okay, again they divide and they form structures referred to as alveoli. What is alveoli? It is a vascularized bag-like structure. Okay, so lungs. Okay, two lungs are there. How are the lungs formed? These are formed by the branching network of bronchi, bronchioles, and alveoli. So you need to understand it very well. Trachea is coming, it is dividing into left and right bronchi. The bronchi are further dividing to form bronchioles. How are the bronchioles? Thin, irregular walled. Very important. Then it is giving rise to alveoli. What are alveoli? Vascularized bag-like structure, the site at which exchange of gases occur. Right? So these three things, that is the bronchi, bronchioles, and alveoli, it is comprising the lungs. Okay, next. I'm moving to the next slide. So here, now we are going to read about lungs. Okay, so lungs we know is covered by a two-layer membrane. Okay, now this two-layer membrane is referred to as pleura. Okay, so every covering in the body, every organ which is covered by a covering, it has different names. Like for heart, we know it's pericardium. For brains, we have meninges, and also in lungs, this covering is called pleura. It is double walled, and since it is double walled, the space in between is filled by this pleural fluid. What is the function of this pleural fluid? It reduces friction on the lung surface. Okay. So lung, the structure you have to know, it is covered by a double membrane, okay, which is referred to as pleura. There is pleural fluid present in between it. What is the function of this pleura? Pleural fluid is to reduce the friction on the lung surface, because more the friction, less efficient the systems will work. Okay, this is done. Okay, now we have to know outer. So there are two membranes. The outer, suppose there are two membranes. The outer membrane will be in close contact with the thoracic lining. What is thoracic lining? Thorax is the portion from the neck, at the base of the neck, and then the thoracic vertebra, where the thoracic vertebra is present, that is our thoracic portion. So the lining, the thoracic lining, so the outer pleura is in close contact with the thoracic lining, and the inner pleural membrane, that one will be in close contact with the lung surface. So this is the lungs of here we are having the membrane, and then we have the other system. So obviously the inner membrane, it is in close contact with the lung. The outer membrane will be in close contact with the thoracic lining. This also can come to you as a question. Okay, now in this respiratory pathway, two parts we will have. One is the conducting part, the part which brings the air from the atmosphere into the lungs, and the second part is the respiratory or exchange part. So conducting part, what is the conducting part? The conducting part extends from the external nostril up to the terminal bronchioles. Okay, from the external nostril up till the terminal bronchioles, that is the conducting part. Okay, what is the function of this conducting part? There are these points given in NCERT. First is to transport atmospheric air to alveoli, to bring the air to the alveoli. Second is to clear it from foreign particles. As the air moves through our nose, we know there are hairs present in our nose. What is the function of that hairs? It clears the foreign particles. If that foreign particles enters our body, they're going to create infections, diseases, or and all. So our body has this inherent mechanism by help of which it will take in the atmospheric air, as well as it will purify it, it will clear it, so that no germs or bacteria or anything can enter our body through the respiratory pathway. Third and fourth is to humidify it and bring air to the body temperature. That is, we know that when there is this suppose the air which is brought in, that can be at a lower temperature, at a higher temperature compared to our body temperature, and we know whenever there is this temperature fluctuation, it creates problems. It disrupts the harmony of the system of the body. Therefore it is the function of the conducting part also to humidify it and to bring it to the body temperature, so that it will not create any problem in our body. These are the functions of the conducting part. What about the respiratory or exchange part? As I have said you before, alveoli is the structure at which this exchange of gases occurs. Okay, means alveoli and their ducts. In the NCERT, the information that is provided, that alveoli and their ducts are the part where respiratory or exchange of gases occurs. What is the function? The function is for the exchange of oxygen and CO2. As you know, what is respiration basically? When we are knowing this breathing process, what is it? It is basically taking in oxygen, which is used in our body for respiration process. That is where the food is broken down into small simpler parts, and the energy is extracted from it. And carbon dioxide, which is released in our body, that is harmful for our body, that is released of our body. So alveoli is the site, alveoli and their ducts is the site at which this exchange of gases occurs, and then it moves inside our body. Okay, now, there are certain steps which are provided in NCERT, that they has been written in NCERT. You have to learn it, because many a times, as I've said you, the steps come, like they will give you this step, they will say you to arrange it, or to say you, or they can ask you to like identify which is the correct one. So you have to know it step after step. First is breathing, or pulmonary ventilation, by which atmospheric air is drawn in and CO2 rich alveolar air is released out. What is it? First of all, what we are having? Breathing. Breathing is very simple. You're taking in oxygen, you're giving in carbon dioxide. This is breathing or pulmonary ventilation. Okay, now as you have drawn in air, it goes into the lungs. In the lungs, what happens? Suppose you have taken oxygen. So in the lungs, what happens? This oxygen is taken in the body, carbon dioxide is given out. So here it is provided that diffusion of gases, oxygen and CO2 across the alveolar membrane occurs. And at last, we are having transport of gases by the blood. Very simple. You have to understand this, that you are taking oxygen, it is going in the lungs. In the alveoli, there is exchange of gases, oxygen, CO2, and then from there, the oxygen is transported in the blood. Okay. Now, So I'm going for the next slide. I'm sorry. Okay, so next step we are having is diffusion of oxygen and CO2 between blood and tissue. Now, the oxygen has come in the tissue. Now, in the tissue, CO2 is generated by respiration, by the process of respiration. What happens in the alveoli? What happens is the oxygen goes inside the blood and carbon dioxide comes out of the blood. In the tissue, what happens? Oxygen will come out of the blood and carbon dioxide will be taken in the blood, which is again carried to the alveoli for the exchange. Okay, and at last, okay, I'll make it very simple. I'm saying it from the starting. First is breathing, pulmonary ventilation. You're taking in oxygen from the atmospheric air. That is going into the lungs. In the alveoli, the lungs is comprised of alveoli. In the alveoli, there's an exchange part. Okay, that is the oxygen is drawn in the blood. Carbon dioxide is given out from the lungs. It is thrown out. That is by breathing. Okay, then from there through blood, it will go into the tissues. In the tissues, by the process of respiration, carbon dioxide is released. So in the tissue, what happens? Again, oxygen is given out of the blood, carbon dioxide is taken in. This carbon dioxide will go into the lungs and then it will be thrown out through breathing. Okay, and at last, what happens? Respiration. Breathing and respiration are different processes. Breathing is the process by which you take in oxygen, give out carbon dioxide. That is breathing. Respiration, and the tissues respiration occurs. What is respiration? Utilizing that oxygen to break down the complex food particles into simpler forms to derive energy from it, to derive ATP from it. We will read more about it in the chapter of respiration, but for now you have to just know this. So these are the steps. Many a times these steps comes as a question MCQ in Neet, so you need to remember this. Okay, next we are having mechanism of breathing. So as I told you, breathing is a different thing. You give out carbon dioxide, you take in oxygen. Respiration is different thing. You will not confuse between these two. Okay, so we are reading about mechanism of breathing. So in breathing, two factors are there. One is inspiration, expiration. Inspiration is you're taking in oxygen. Expiration is you're giving out carbon dioxide. Okay, there are certain major muscles which are involved in this breathing process. Two most important one is diaphragm. Diaphragm is present on, it is a dome shaped structure. It is present below the lungs. Okay, and the second is external and internal intercostal muscle. These muscles are present in ribs. We know that ribs, they are serially arranged. Okay, so these are the muscles which hold it. Like this muscles, you will find it in between the ribs. So two, it comes as a question, it has came as a question in Neet. So two muscles that helps in breathing, one is diaphragm and the other one is external and internal intercostal muscle. Okay, external and internal intercostal muscle is present between the ribs. Diaphragm is a dome-shaped muscle which is present below the lungs. Okay, first we will do inspiration. So inspiration, in inspiration, what happens? There is contraction of both external intercostal muscle as well as diaphragm. So during contraction, what happens? This is, suppose this is the diaphragm which is present below the lungs. During contraction, it becomes flat. That means it is increasing the space. So the volume inside the lung increases. Okay, and suppose this is the external intercostal muscle between the ribs. It moves outwards, like the ribs goes outwards. So what happens is the ribs are going outwards and the diaphragm is also going downwards. Volume is increasing, right? Now through Boyle's law, we know that pressure and volume are inversely proportional to each other. So if the volume inside the lungs is increasing, that means the pressure is decreasing. Or we can say that in the lungs, there is a negative pressure, right? The pressure is decreasing. And through pressure difference, we know that pressure moves from higher concentration to lower concentration. So now when we are doing this inspiration, as we can see, that the pressure in the atmosphere is more as compared to the pressure inside the lung. The pressure is reducing because the volume is increasing, as a result of which the pressure flows from the atmospheric air into our lungs. So this is the mechanism you have to understand. Contraction of the diaphragm, it moves, it is a dome-shaped structure, it becomes flat. The external intercostal muscle, the ribs, they move outward. So there is increase in the volume of the lungs. Increase in volume decreases pressure. That means inside the lungs, we have this negative pressure. The atmospheric pressure is more, and since air moves from a pressure of higher concentration to lower concentration, air will move from the atmosphere into our lungs. This is inspiration. This is the process of inspiration. Okay. The diagram has been provided to you. These two diagrams are present in NCRT, so you have to do it. Okay, so the opposite will happen in expiration. What will happen? Here the diaphragm will relax. Okay, two key factors you have to know. During inspiration, there is contraction of diaphragm and external intercostal muscle, whereas during expiration, there is relaxation of diaphragm and intercostal muscle. So relaxation means what? The diaphragm is becoming more dome-shaped, and the ribs along with the external intercostal muscle is moving inward, so the volume is decreasing. When the volume is decreasing, the pressure is increasing. The pressure is more as compared to atmospheric air. The air is thrown out from a pressure of higher concentration to a pressure of lower concentration. So this is the simple mechanism, all following the rules, the laws of physics. Inspiration, expiration. Two key factors, two muscles involved: diaphragm, external and internal intercostal muscle. Diaphragm, dome-shaped structure present below the lungs. External and internal intercostal muscle present between the ribs. Okay. During inspiration, contraction. During expiration, we have this relaxation. Okay. So you need to know this. Okay. Now, there's a note which is provided here that we have the ability to increase. This is all from NCRT. Nothing has been provided to you from my side. This is all the lines, all the informations are from NCRT. You have to read each and every line, each and every information. So we have the ability to increase the strength of inspiration and expiration with the help of additional muscles in the abdomen. The mechanism or how is it happening, you don't have to know it. You have to just know the information. If this statement is provided to you in Neet as an MCQ, so you can answer it. It is that we have the ability to increase the strength of inspiration and expiration, because sometimes when you do exercise or like when you're doing some strenuous kind of work, so the rate of respiration increases, your breathing rate increases. So at that time you need, obviously what happens, you need to increase the strength of inspiration and expiration. How will you do it? There has to be some mechanism. You have to just know it, that this happens by additional muscles in the abdomen. What are the muscles? What is the mechanism? You don't have to know it right now. Okay, so next we are moving onward. On an average, a healthy human breathes 12 to 16 times. This is an information. It is a question which comes in Neet, so you have to remember this value. That is, on an average, a healthy human breathes 12 to 16 times in a minute. In a minute, they can breathe 12 to. Next, which we have is the respiratory volumes and capacities. What is it? Okay, so numerically, we have been able to calculate the amount of air which is involved in this respiratory process. So these are given certain names which are referred to as volumes and capacities. You have to know the definition, you have to know the values. First, we have tidal volume. What is tidal volume? It is the volume of air inspired or expired during normal respiration. Like right now I'm teaching you, you're studying. We are performing a normal respiration, right? Normally we are taking in oxygen, giving out carbon dioxide. We're not realizing it also. So that volume is referred to as tidal volume. The value is 500 milliliter. You need to remember the definition and the value, and the one which is provided in NCRT. Volume of air inspired or expired during normal respiration. Done. And there's a note also, which this is 500 milliliter. Tidal volume is 500 milliliter, but one more information which is provided in NCRT is healthy man can inspire or expire approximately 6,000 to 8,000 milliliter of air per minute. You don't confuse between these two. Tidal volume is just a volume. It's just a numerical value which has been provided. That is the volume of air that is involved when you do normal inspiration or expiration, 500 milliliter. And there's a note provided in NCRT that is a healthy man can inspire or expire approximately 6,000 to 8,000 milliliter per minute. Tidal volume is not about per minute or per hour, how much you're doing it. It's just in one inspiration or expiration, the amount of volume which is involved, that is tidal volume, 500 milliliter. But information is healthy man can inspire or expire approximately 6,000 to 8,000 milliliter per minute. That is in a minute, how much, this much amount of this much volume of air they are breathing in or they can breathe out. Okay, next we have is the inspiratory reserve volume. What is it? Additional volume of air a person can inspire by forceful inspiration. That is, so next we have the inspiratory reserve volume. That is, sometimes you see you take a deep breath. Okay, how do you take that deep? Sometimes you need to take a deep breath, or you need to expiration when you are performing. You need to give out a deep breath. So that amount of volume, additional volume, a person can breathe in by forceful inspiration. Why forceful inspiration? Because this is not normal. Normally, you're taking in oxygen. That is something else. But when you're taking it forcibly, like you need it for, like when you get going into water for like swimming, you take in a deep breath and then you go into water so that you can stay in water. Like the people who do this swimming competition and everything, they take a deep breath and they go inside water so that that volume of air will retain in the lungs for a longer period of time, and they can stay in underwater for a longer period of time. That volume is referred to as inspiratory reserve volume. The value is 2500 to 3000 milliliter. The unit is also very important. It's milliliter. You need to remember it. Sometimes in Neet they will put it like they can give you 2500 liter to 3000 liter and you will get confused. So the unit also you need to remember, it's milliliter. In a similar way, when you expire, see, you will remember the words with the definition. Inspiratory reserve volume. What does it mean? Inspiratory is the one you are inspiring. Reserve is the one which is staying in the lungs. So it has to be forceful, because normal it is not going to stay in your lungs, right? You're breathing it, you're giving it out. The one which is staying. So inspiratory reserve volume, you're taking it by forceful inspiration. Expiratory reserve volume, you're giving out by forceful expiration. The value of expiratory reserve volume is 1000 to 1100 milliliter. Okay, they confuse you in Neet with this question, so you need to remember this. And at last we have the residual volume. What is residual volume? See, if all the air is expired from your lungs, obviously the lungs will collapse, right? There has to be some amount of air that has to be present in the lungs for it to function. That amount of air which is present in the lungs, even after forceful expiration, like you're giving out this force by forceful expiration, you're giving out extra amount of air, still some amount of air will always be present in your lungs, otherwise your lungs will collapse. And that volume of air present in the lungs even after forceful expiration is called residual volume. This is a key word. After forceful expiration, you need to remember this. Volume of air remaining in the lungs after forceful expiration is called residual volume. What is the value? 1100 to 1200 milliliter. Again, I'm focusing on the unit milliliter. You should not confuse between the units. Okay, now we add this volumes. These are all volumes. That is the volume of air which is involved in everything. We add up this volume. Why do we add up this volume? To get the pulmonary capacity. What is capacity? That is how much the lung can endure. Like you add up the volume, you take out a capacity. Different capacities are also provided in NCRT. These are the volumes. The volumes we came to know. Now we will add it up to give us the capacities. What is the capacity of the lung? Okay, first we have inspiratory capacity. Total volume of air a person can inspire after normal expiration. After you're performing a normal expiration, again, how much amount of air you can take in, that is inspiratory capacity. This is when you add tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volumes. Sometimes in NCRT the values are not provided, but sometimes they can give you with the values also. Like they will ask you what is the value of inspiratory capacity. As we know, tidal volume is 500 milliliter, inspiratory reserve volume is 2500 to 3000 milliliter. They can give you an option of give me the inspiratory capacity. It can be, what will it be? You will add it up, so it will be from 3000 to 3500 milliliter. So this is something you have to do it on your own. This information is not provided in NCRT. Okay, so first we have inspiratory capacity. Inspiratory capacity, see, inspiratory capacity is what? Inspiratory capacity, that is the capacity which you can inspire. What inspire after what? Normal expiration, not forceful expiration. When we're speaking about the volumes, we use the term reserve inspiratory reserve volume, expiratory reserve volume. What is reserve? That will remain in the lungs. So there we were using the term forceful, but here we have inspiratory capacity, capacity of the lung. So that will be after normal expiration. Inspiratory capacity is the one you will inspire after normal expiration. Expiratory capacity is the one you can expire after normal inspiration. Do not get confused between this. The more, see, you need to learn this obviously, but you have to understand it also, because if you understand it, it will be easier for you to learn it, right? So tidal volume is the common factor, obviously. Now when you're adding inspiratory reserve volume, it will give you inspiratory capacity. When you're adding expiratory reserve volume, you will get the expiratory capacity. Again, I'm saying you reserve, the word where reserve was used, that was forceful. Here, inspiratory, expiratory capacity after normal inspiration or expiration, the amount of air you can breathe in or breathe out. Okay, next. Okay, three more things are there. One is functional residual capacity. What is it? Volume of air remains in the lung after normal expiration. Volume of air remaining in the lung after forceful expiration was what? That was residual volume, right? The same thing, see, they will confuse you. They will give a statement, volume of air that remains in the lungs. Till this part, it is the same. After forceful expiration, that is residual volume. After normal expiration, that is functional residual capacity. What is functional residual capacity? See, what did I say you? That there has to be some amount of air present in the lungs for it to work, right? After forceful expiration, that is residual volume. After normal expiration, obviously after normal expiration, some amount of air is present in the lungs. That is why it is not collapsing. That is functional residual capacity. You get it after adding residual volume plus expiratory reserve volume. How will you remember it? See, normal expiration or forceful expiration, that part is correlated, so residual volume is there, and since expiration part is involved, so expiratory reserve volume, you are adding it up. Okay, then we have this vital capacity, maximum volume of air a person can breathe in after forced expiration, maximum volume of air a person can breathe out after forced inspiration. See, so inspiratory capacity, volume of air you can breathe in after forceful expiration. Expiratory capacity, volume of air you can breathe out after normal inspiration. Vital capacity, the word vital is used. You need to know it from the words. In reserve, we come to know there were, when we use reserve, there it was this forceful thing was involved. Here vital, you're using vital, so here also forceful will be there. So the maximum volume of air a person can breathe in after forceful expiration, breathe out after forceful inspiration. Okay, here you will have tidal volume, inspiratory reserve volume, expiratory reserve volume, you have to add it. Okay, and at last we are having total lung capacity. This is the volume of air present in lungs after forceful inspiration. Here you will add everything: residual volume, inspiratory reserve volume, expiratory reserve volume, tidal volume. I am summing it up for you. Okay, first we had tidal volume, normal, breathing, breathe out. Inspiratory reserve, expiratory reserve. Reserve is present, that means the one which is staying in the lungs. When does it happen? Forceful. Inspiratory, you will take in by forceful inspiration. Expiratory will give out after forceful expiration. After giving out this forceful expirations, a volume of air which is remaining in the lung, residual. Okay, residual. And after, then we have this capacity. So we come to know this inspiratory capacity. Capacity is what? Which is present in the lung. So inspiratory capacity will be what? That is the one which can breathe in after normal expiration. Expiratory capacity, breathe out after normal expiration. Capacity. TV, tidal volume is common. When you're adding inspiratory reserve volume, inspiratory capacity. When you're adding expiratory reserve volume, expiratory capacity. Then we have this functional residual capacity. What is it? The volume of air remaining in the lungs after normal expiration. That is, some amount of air has to remain in the lungs so that it doesn't collapse. So what, of course, residual volume will be involved, and 6 expiration is involved. So expiratory reserve volume. Vital capacity, the word vital is used here. So since the word vital is used, forceful is there. So the one when you are breathing in after forceful expiration or breathing out after forceful breathing in after forceful expiration or breathing out after forceful inspiration. And at last we have, so here you will have TB, that is the tidal volume, plus the inspiratory reserve volume, plus the expiratory reserve volume, because both inspiration and expiration are involved in the definition. And at last we are having this total lung capacity. So total lung capacity is the volume of air which will be present in the lungs after forced inspiration. Means, like, that is the total lung capacity. You will add all the volumes. Okay, So this was about the volumes and the capacities. Okay. Next, we are having the exchange of gases. How does this exchange of gases occurs? Here, a diagram has been provided to you. This diagram is a part of NCRT, so you need to read it. You have to see it. Like they will provide you with the diagram, and they will put arrows, and they will say you like what part was here or what is wrong with the diagram. So you need to see the diagram. Okay. I'll explain it in the next. Okay. So here, few things are provided. First thing is primary site of exchange of gases. We know alveoli. Exchange of gases occurs through diffusion. It was occurring through diffusion. See, diffusion is a process through which exchange of gases occurs. We have seen it in case of lower invertebrates also at the beginning, where we have seen that it occurs through the skin. There is exchange of gases is occurring through diffusion. In us also it is occurring through diffusion, but not on our superficial surface. It is occurring on the surface of the alveoli inside the lungs. Okay, now it has to depend on certain factors. What are the factors on which this exchange of gases occurs? First is the pressure or the concentration gradient, because we know that gases move from a pressure from an area of higher concentration or pressure to lower concentration. First thing that. Second is the solubility of gases. See, mainly we are speaking about two gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide. Now the solubilities are different for both oxygen and carbon dioxide. So it will also depend on the solubility of gases. And third is the thickness of the membrane involved. As we have seen, if the thickness will be more, then the exchange of gases will be very difficult, the process. In order to ensure efficient working of this respiration, the thickness of the membrane is also very important, and it has to be thin. Okay, so the three factors. So we come to know that the primary site for the exchange of gases is alveoli. Then exchange of gases occurs through the process diffusion. It depends upon three factors. First is the pressure or the concentration gradient. Second is the solubility of the gas, and third is the thickness of the membrane involved. Okay. Now, next, there is certain information provided to you. That is a partial pressure. What is partial pressure? We know that suppose in a vessel, you're having a mixture of gases, like say oxygen, hydrogen, carbon dioxide, whatever. The individual pressure that is exerted by the individual gas, obviously it will be different for different gases. The pressure will not be the same for all the gases. So the individual pressure which is exerted by the individual gas, that is referred to as the partial pressure. Here we have provided you with the information of partial pressures of oxygen and carbon dioxide, because those two are the main gases we are concerned about, and it is measured in millimeter Hg. You need to focus on the units, because many a times they change the units, and that's the reason the students make a mistake in their exam. Okay, so here at different levels, what is the partial pressure that is provided to you? First is so you need to remember atmosphere. We are starting with atmosphere. So first we have the atmospheric air, then we have the alveoli, it is going in the alveoli, then the blood deoxygenated, then blood oxygenated, and tissue. Five factors. The values are provided. Like for oxygen, atmosphere is 159, alveoli is 104, you can read it as 40, 95, 40. 40 will be deoxygenated, oxygenated will be 95, tissue is 40. Oxygen will be less in deoxygenated and tissue, right? So 40, 40, and in between 95 oxygenated. When you speak about carbon dioxide in atmosphere, we know carbon dioxide is very less in quantity, so it's 0.3. Again, you can read there 40, 45, 40, 45. So 45 will be deoxygenated. 45, where will be the value of carbon dioxide will be more? Of course, in the deoxygenated blood and the tissue. So there it is 45, 45. Where it will be less? It will be less in the alveoli and in the oxygenated blood. So it is 40 in alveoli and 40 in the oxygenated blood. So you learn it. These values you have to learn. Okay. And you can, it is easier, like for carbon dioxide, you will read it as 40, 45, 40, 45. 45 is where carbon dioxide will be more in the tissue and in the deoxygenated blood. 40 where it will be less, that is in the oxygenated part and in the alveoli. And in the atmosphere, it is very less, 0.3. Everybody, we know this. In case of oxygen, it's 40, 95, 40, where it will be less. 40, two parts where it will be 40. One is the tissue and one is the blood deoxygenated, where the level of carbon dioxide will be more, and more 95 in oxygenated blood. And those two values you have to learn. In the atmosphere, it is 159. In alveoli, it is 104. A note is provided. We saw that the exchange of gases depends upon the solubility. We have to know the solubility of oxygen and CO2. And information is provided that the solubility of CO2 is 20 to 25 times higher than oxygen. This information you have to learn. This value you have to remember, 20 to 25 times. Solubility of CO2 is 20 to 25 times higher than oxygen. Okay, next. Okay, we are going to the next slide. Now, the membrane, we were speaking about the membrane. Okay, now this diffusion membrane is made up of three layers. We know what are involved. First is the alveoli is involved. Okay, then we have the blood vessels, vascularized structure we come to know. So first is the thin squamous epithelium of alveoli. Epithelium, different divisions are there. You have learned it in structural organization, the chapter. Squamous epithelium is there. So thin squamous epithelium of alveoli. Why thin? Because exchange of gases, the thickness has to be less, otherwise it will create problems for the diffusion. Next is the endothelium of the alveolar capillaries, the blood vessels which are present, the endothelium, and there's this basement membrane. Basement membrane is a non-cellular layer, it's a non-living layer which is present in between them just to support them. So three membranes are there. First, alveoli is concerned, so thin squamous epithelium of the alveoli, endothelium of the alveolar capillaries, and basement membrane in between them. A diagram has been provided, and this diagram is extracted from NCRT, so you have to read it. And there's a note that is the total thickness of the diffusion membrane. It is much less than a millimeter. It is very less. Like if the membrane will be thick, it will be very difficult for the exchange of gases. To enhance, like to make it easier, it has to be less. You have to remember this note, that total thickness of diffusion membrane should be less than a millimeter. A millimeter is very less, and it is still less than a millimeter. Okay, then there are certain values. See, basically this transport of gases, it occurs through RBC. We know it occurs through blood. In blood we have this RBC. Then plasma is also a part of blood, and bicarbonate is for carbon dioxide. I have made it very easier for you. We have divided into three parts: RBC, dissolved state through plasma, and bicarbonate. In oxygen, obviously, there is no bicarbonate seen. Maximum is taken by RBC, so 97%, only 3% is taken up by the plasma. You need to remember these values. They give you these values. For carbon dioxide, RBC 20 to 25%, plasma 7%, maximum amount of carbon dioxide is carried as bicarbonate, which is 70%. Okay. You need to remember this value. There is no other. I have made it more easier for you. I have arranged it into tables so that it remains in the memory, but the value you need to remember. Okay. Oxygen 97%, RBC 3%, dissolved state through plasma. CO2, RBC 20 to 25%, dissolved state through plasma 7%, bicarbonate 70%. Then we are having the transport of oxygen. Okay. We know oxygen is transported through blood. In blood, we have RBC. In RBC, you have this hemoglobin. What is hemoglobin? It is a red colored iron containing pigment. This information you need to remember. Like these are the key points which will be used in exam. It's a red colored iron containing pigment. One thing, oxygen will bind with hemoglobin when it is being carried through RBC. How it is carried through RBC? It will bind with hemoglobin. That's why hemoglobin is a very important factor in our body. And when oxygen is binding with hemoglobin, it binds in a reversible manner. You need to remember this reversible manner. They will give you this they can give you a statement like oxygen can bind with hemoglobin in an irreversible manner to form oxyhemoglobin. Ultimately, it is forming oxyhemoglobin, but they can change this word reversible, irreversible, or they can give you in a fill in the blank type of statement also. So you need to remember that oxygen will bind with hemoglobin in a reversible manner. Why reversible manner? Because the oxygen has to bind with hemoglobin at the alveoli level so that it can be transported to the tissue. But at the tissue level, it has to be released into the tissue, as a result of which oxygen binds with hemoglobin in a reversible manner. In alveoli, it binds with hemoglobin. At tissue, it gets dissociated. Okay, what does it form? It forms oxyhemoglobin. Now, one more question comes: how much amount of oxygen can be carried by hemoglobin? So here the information is provided. Each hemoglobin molecule can carry a maximum of 4 molecules of oxygen. One molecule of hemoglobin will carry 4 molecules of oxygen. Okay. Now, if you plot the percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen against the partial pressure of oxygen, you get this sigmoid curve that is referred to as oxygen dissociation curve. So sigmoid curve is like it is a curve for living organism. Like when you compare various parameters in other fields also, a sigmoid curve, this is a standard. So when you're doing it in case of oxygen also, at one suppose on the y-axis you are plotting the percentage saturation of oxygen. What is percentage saturation of oxygen with hemoglobin, that is how much amount of oxygen is being carried by hemoglobin, and on the other you are taking the partial pressure of oxygen. For the transport of gases, whether it be oxygen or carbon dioxide, partial pressure which is exerted by oxygen or carbon dioxide is a very important factor. Everything depends on the partial pressure. So we are taking partial pressure as one parameter and percentage saturation with hemoglobin as another parameter on the different axis. One is y-axis and the other one is x-axis. We will get a sigmoid curve, that is S-shaped curve. That curve is called oxygen dissociation curve. Okay, I'm going to the next slide. So this is the curve. This is a part of NCRT. It is provided in NCRT. You need to remember this. You need to know this. Okay. Now, why is this curve very important? Why do we need to have this curve? Because this curve helps us in understanding the effects of other factors. Like what are the factors which are involved for the exchange of gases? Like whether it be, as I said, you partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide is very important to know about the transport of gases, whether it be oxygen or carbon dioxide. But there are other factors also like H plus ion concentration, temperature, etc., which also affects the transport. Okay, so we will see two scenarios, one in the alveoli and the other in the tissue. What is happening in the alveoli? We know that we have a higher partial pressure of oxygen. How much was it? It was 104, as we had seen there. Okay, so and there was low partial pressure of carbon dioxide. How much was it? 40. Okay, two more factors which are present in alveoli is low H plus ion concentration. One information which is not provided here, but it can come in exam. Low H plus ion concentration means what? That the pH is high. Right, H plus ion concentration is low, that means the pH will be high, right? So they can give you in a like they can confuse you. In spite of giving you low H plus ion concentration, which is basically provided in NCRT, they can say you high pH. Both means the same thing. Okay, and there is low temperature. How will you remember? In alveoli only one thing is high, that is the partial pressure of oxygen is high, pH is high. Two things, the other are all low. There is low partial pressure of carbon dioxide, low H plus ion concentration, low temperature. So since the partial pressure of oxygen is high in alveoli, the hemoglobin will obviously bind with the oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin. Okay, so this is the scenario which happens in alveoli. Now when we speak about tissue, in tissue what happens, see, at the tissue level, due to the reactions which occur in our body, carbon dioxide, the amount of carbon dioxide is more at the tissue. Why is it? Because respiration is occurring, it is giving out carbon dioxide, it is utilizing this oxygen, as a result of which the carbon dioxide is more, so the partial pressure of carbon dioxide will be more. Here only you have to just reverse the scenarios. Okay, here only the partial pressure of oxygen is less and we have this low pH. This high H plus ion concentration means what? There will be low pH, but we have high partial pressure of oxygen, high H plus ion concentration, high temperature. As a result, what will happen? The hemoglobin and oxygen will dissociate, because at tissue we are requiring the oxygen. We require the oxygen. We need to remove carbon dioxide. So at the tissue, the carbon dioxide will bind with the hemoglobin. Okay, and there's this note, see, every 100 milliliter of oxygenated blood will carry 5 milliliter of oxygen, and every 100 milliliter of deoxygenated blood will deliver 4 milliliter of CO2. These two information you need to remember: 5 milliliter of oxygen every 100 milliliter of oxygenated blood, 4 milliliter of carbon dioxide every 100 milliliter of deoxygenated blood. Okay, now CO2. So we come to know that through RBC, CO2 transports 20 to 25%. Okay, it forms like oxyhemoglobin was being formed with oxygen hemoglobin. So obviously with carbon dioxide, a compound will be formed that is referred to as carbaminohemoglobin. This is the name. Oxyhemoglobin is formed with oxygen and hemoglobin. Carbon dioxide with hemoglobin forms carbaminohemoglobin. And there is an important enzyme that helps in this process, that is carbonic anhydrase enzyme. A question which is very popular is maximum amount of this carbonic anhydrase is present in the RBC and a small amount of it is present in the plasma. As we could see that 7% of carbon dioxide is carried through plasma and 20 to 25% is carried through RBC. So we come to know that carbonic anhydrase, it is very important. It is very important for the transport of carbon dioxide. So large amount of it is present in the RBC and a small amount of it is present in the plasma. How does it help it? So we come to know that oxygen was, when oxygen was binding with hemoglobin, it was a reversible manner so that it can dissociate. So similarly, carbon dioxide has also to be dissociated. So that will also occur in a reversible manner, like two-way process. So CO2 plus H2O is forming H2CO3. What is H2CO3? Carbonic acid, right? This carbonic acid dissociates into HCO3 plus, that is stored, HCO3 minus, that is bicarbonate, plus H plus ion concentration. There are two effects which occurs. One is the chloride shift and the other one is Bohr effect. You don't need to know about that in detail, so I'm not discussing it here, like how it is transported. You just need to know the facts. So I'm just saying how much ever it is required. So what happens is these are the reactions which occur by help of which carbon dioxide is transported inside the body. CO2 is binding with H2O to form H2CO3. It dissociates to form HCO3 minus plus H plus. HCO3 minus is the bicarbonate. So we come to know that we have come to know previously carbon dioxide is transported in huge amounts as bicarbonate 70%. So this is how it is being transported. Okay. So, and both these reactions, it is catalyzed by carbonic anhydrous. You just need to know this. This equation doesn't come also in exams. The basic thing which you need to know here is carbonic anhydrous, and it is present in large amounts in RBC and small amounts in plasma, and all the different modes which I have provided. Okay. Next, which we are having is the regulation of respiration. How is this respiration controlled in our body? This diagram, which is provided, both the diagrams, it is not a part of NCERT. You have to just know. I just provided it for your better understanding. So here it is said that we know that in medulla there are certain centers which controls respiration, gastric secretion, and also in medulla there is a center referred to as respiratory rhythm center. Okay, the diagram on the left on the upper part is showing you in the medulla. There is this respiratory rhythm center which is primarily responsible for the regulation. It regulates the respiration. But another center is also present in pons. In the diagram lower part, on the left part, you can see inside the pons, that is referred to as pneumotaxic center. What is the function of this pneumotaxic center? It reduces the duration of inspiration. Okay, like when it detects any changes in the body that can harm respiration, it sends signal to the rhythm center. You have to remember, respiratory rhythm center is primarily responsible for this regulation. Pneumotaxic center is present in pons. How will you remember this? Pneumotaxic center, starting with P, it is present in pons region. You have to correlate it and you have to learn it. So pneumotaxic center is present in pons. How will it do it? Whenever it detects any change now in the body, it will send signal to the respiratory rhythm center to reduce inspiration. This process has this question has come in MCQ, to reduce the duration of inspiration, and thereby obviously the respiratory rate will also be altered. Okay, these two things are a major one. It is an important part, but there are other parts also which has also come in questions in Neet. Is a chemosensitive area is situated adjacent. You can see on the right part, I've shown you a chemosensitive area which is present above pons, that is present adjacent to the rhythm center, that is also sensitive to CO2 and hydrogen ions. Okay, so two factors which affect respiration, one is CO2 and the other is hydrogen ions. Whenever their concentration increases in our body, it can create problems with respiration and other kinds of problems. So first, what we are having in the medullary region, respiratory rhythm center, primarily responsible. Two more. One is the pneumotaxic center present in pons. It reduces the inspiration. And the second one is chemosensitive area. It is adjacent to the rhythm center and they are highly sensitive to CO2 and hydrogen ion. Okay, next. This diagram is also not a part of NCERT, so this is all only for your understanding. Now, when there is an increase in the substances like CO2 and H plus ion concentration, the chemosensitive areas which are present, that they will send signal to the respiratory rhythm center. At the end, the respiratory rhythm center is the one which is going to take action for how it has to be regulated in our body. And then it will make remedial actions so that our body remains, the system remains in harmony. So be it pneumotaxic center or be it the chemosensitive area, they will detect the changes, they will send signal to the respiratory rhythm center, and the respiratory rhythm center will take actions in order to remove them. Okay, So how does pneumotaxic center do it? By reduction in the duration of inspiration. That apart from this too, there are certain receptors associated with the carotid artery, as you can see, and the aortic arch. This is the aorta. From the heart, we know from there carotid artery goes. There are certain receptors which are provided, which are also capable of noticing these changes in CO2 and H plus ion concentration and send signal to respiratory rhythm center. So what we come to know, respiratory rhythm center, that is the primary one, okay, which is present in medulla. In the pons, we have pneumotaxic center. It can reduce the duration of inspiration by sending signal to respiratory rhythm center. Another one is chemosensitive area that is present adjacent to the respiratory rhythm center. Then there are receptors associated with carotid artery and aortic arch. Okay, this all, how do they do it? They detect, they're very sensitive to CO2 and H plus ion concentration present in the body. When their concentration increases in the body, they send signal to the respiratory rhythm center, which then make remedial actions to remove them. So this is the entire regulation. Okay, and at last, we are having this. One thing is very important you need to know is the role of oxygen in the regulation of respiratory rhythm is quite insignificant. It is not so significant. Like oxygen is required for respiration. It plays a very important part. But in case of regulation, as you can see, the receptors, they are more affected by CO2 or H plus ion concentration. But oxygen does not hold so much importance in the regulation of respiratory rhythm. Okay, and at last we are having disorders of respiratory system. 3 are provided in NCRT. First is asthma. We know during asthma there is difficulty in breathing. Why does it happen? Due to inflammation of bronchi or bronchioles. That is, if suppose in any part there is inflammation, then the passage of air becomes very difficult, as a result of which, since the air cannot pass through, the respiratory part cannot function properly, so there will be difficulty in breathing. These 2 lines are provided in NCRT. It's very important. Difficulty in breathing and wheezing due to inflammation of bronchi and bronchioles, both bronchi and bronchioles. Then we have emphysema. Emphysema is very important. It's a chronic disorder. Here what happens, if the alveolar walls are damaged somehow, the alveolar walls are damaged. We know alveoli is the site of actual diffusion. So when the site of actual diffusion is damaged, so there the respiration, the exchange of gases cannot occur properly. So the respiratory surface is reduced. So when the respiratory surface will be reduced, the respiration cannot occur, breathing process cannot occur properly. So, and one of the major causes is cigarette smoking. It has come several times in as a MCQ question in Neet. It is very important. So they can ask you to differentiate also asthma and emphysema. They will give you statements and they'll ask you which one is which. So this two, you have to go through the statements. Asthma, difficulty in breathing, wheezing due to inflammation of bronchioles. Emphysema, chronic disorder, alveolar walls are damaged, respiratory surface is reduced. And at last we have occupational respiratory disorders. You will see there are many industries where there is generation of a lot of dust, like here in NCRT they are provided with stone grinding and grinding or stone breaking. So what happens, a lot of dust is produced. At one time, our body can tolerate a maximum amount of dust particles entering the body or something like that. But when that level goes on increasing, our body will also stop coping up according to that. So in that scenario, what happens? There is inflammation leading to fibrosis. What is fibrosis? Proliferation of fibrous tissue. What happens? See, whenever there is any change in our body, be it the germs, bacteria, whatever is entering, like during we will see this allergic reaction. What happens is inflammation occurs, right? The basic cause is inflammation. Like whenever there is inflammation, there will be difficulty in the problem. The inflammation is actually not a disorder. It's like a way of the body to say to us that something is wrong going inside our body. So similarly, as we saw that there was inflammation of bronchioles in case of asthma, in case of occupational respiratory disorder, there is inflammation leading to fibrosis. What is there? Fibrous tissue present in our body. There is proliferation of fibrous tissue. These are the symptoms. These all are the symptoms. This is the way of our body to tell us that something is wrong with the body, right? So this is for the occupational respiratory disorder. And the workers which work, therefore it has been stated here that the workers which work in such industry, they're advised to wear protective masks. Like if you're using masks, then that dust will not enter in your body. So this was about the chapter, the breathing chapter, the breathing and exchange of gases. In my next slide, I'm going to provide you with all the PYQs that has come in Neet previously, and I'll try to collect more questions for you from different parts, difficult questions also that will come in Neet, so that it will be easier for you. So thank you so much. So this was all. Thank you.